Welcome to the MGS channel. Thank you. So what I want to do today, this is my cooking show. I'm making garlic chicken. Now I had this marinating overnight. I had the aluminum foil over it and I let it just soak. And I'll tell you, the chicken, smells delicious. Smells just like garlic. So what I do is I get a head of garlic. I cut the tips off. And what's that doing is it's helping, well, we dropped that one on the ground, so we'll get another one over here. All right, we got a head of garlic, and that happens. It happens in any cooking. So if you're cooking, you're gonna have some that drops and you just toss them out and you move on. So we got another piece. We're cutting the tips off. And then what you wanna do is just cut it right down the middle a little bit, and the husk comes right off. Right off. I mean, it doesn't come off too easy because this is fresh garlic and it's sticky. So now right after that, what you want to do is just cut it. Cut it into sections. Put it in your bowl of goodies. And this was a head of onion right here, only one head. This is the secret ingredient to making the best garlic chicken. And you don't want to put a lot. So what I do is I cut it up. I cut it up real fine. You don't want big chunks because you're not eating onion. You want garlic chicken. But this just gives a really good flavor. Instead of putting a bunch of onion powder or salt in here, you don't need all that. Just do a nice onion. So now that we have the onion, we got that. So now, and there's a mess. There's always a mess with cooking. So if you love to cook, there's always going to be a mess. So now I got my pan right here. And what you're doing is you want the flavor that it's soaked in. And all you're going to do is you want all that goodies. And the goodies is your onions and your garlic. You don't want to leave none of that in your bowl because it's been soaking overnight. And now what you want to do, what I do, is I just flip them all on the one side. So I know exactly how long it's going to cook and everything. So now what I do, and here's what you want to do. You want to go to your refrigerator. And like I said at the beginning, they were soaking in a cup of water and a cup of chicken stock. But what you want to do is shake this back up because it was a lot of the settled. And it was in the refrigerator. So shake it up. And now, what you're doing, and I don't really measure, but if you're in the measuring, I'm going to get a glass for you. And what you're doing is this is a cup, about a cup. And what you're doing is you don't want to put it all, but you just put about a half a cup or a third. But then you're just going to pour that on there. And that's the flavor right there. So now what you want to do, you put this away because it will go bad if you keep it out. It will spoil. But you can't really keep it a long time anyway. So what you want to do now is get a lid and put it over it. Because what you're doing is it's going to cook for a while. So now I got it on the stove here. I covered it up, and what you want to do is basically turn this up to high, because what you're doing is once it starts to boil, that's when you'll turn it down to about, and on stoves they have numbers, so you have low, 3, 4, 5, and 7, and then you have high. So once it starts boiling, what you want to do is you don't want to take the lid off because you want a lid with a hole in it because the steam you do want to come out. And then, and this is the reason I said not to use all of your chicken stock, because as this is evaporating, what's going to happen is you're going to have to add more. And we are going to add just a little bit of water, about a third of a cup of water, and it's going to be boiling and boiling and boiling. And about a half an hour in, what we're going to do is we're going to add the chicken stock again. And we're going to use this whole container in making this because you want that flavor of the chicken. And unless you have another reason to keep this, you can still leave about this much. But I don't have anything else I want to cook with it. So I'm going to use the whole container. But I'm going to let it cook down. I'm going to really let this boil. And it's going to be superb. It's my new word. That's my new word. Superb, you know. And but I mean, that's basically it. So now what we have to do is just wait for it to cook. Now it's boiling. So what you're going to do is just move them around a little bit. Make sure they're underneath of your good flavor. And the flavor is your chicken stock and your onion and your garlic. So once you see everything's covered, now it's boiling. So what I did is I turned it down. Now you still want to keep it boiling, but with the lid on it, it's going to keep all that heat in there. And with this little hole right here, it's going to let the moisture evaporate. And what that's doing is it's making sauce because it's cooking, it's breaking down that chicken. So that's going to be about a half an hour, and then I'll show you what's going to be next. Still boiling. It's been boiling for about 10 minutes now. So what you want to do, take the lid off. It's really, you can see, you can smell it. It smells so good. But what you want to do is flip them over, and that's why I said make sure they're all on one side, so when you flip them over, you know how you're flipping them. So what you want to do is about every 10 to 15 minutes, you want to flip them because you want the flavor to go on both sides and basically inside the meat. So don't be afraid someone's going to splash out. You can always wipe that up. But like I say again, cooking is all about the experience, number one, and then making a mess. That's the fun. That's what I like about cooking. You're making a mess, and then afterwards you can clean up. But as you can tell, your chicken, it's when your spoon or fork can go straight through it without ease. But as it's cooking, you'll see, first it becomes like rubberish, but then it becomes, it stops being rubberish. I mean, you're going to see. I mean, follow along, keep following along, and this recipe is going to turn out fantastic. And I have it down just a little too low, so I just want to bring it up a little bit, and now I'm going to put the lid on it for another 10 minutes. And we'll let that cook up. Okay. It's been cooking 10 minutes on the one side, 10 minutes on the other side. So now what you can do is all that, like the flavor, you'll see like the seasoning sticking to the side of the pan. Kind of just try to get that away from the edge because you don't want it to burn. So put it back down into the flavor, into your sauce, because this is going to be a sauce pretty soon. And I know it looks like a soup, but it's not. What you're doing is you're wanting it to be real tender. So yeah, see, it's starting to get tender. As I stick my fork, actually, I'm sticking my, you can stick a fork, but I'm using a spoon. Spoon, fork, knife, whatever way you want. But I like to use a spoon because when you stick it in, if it catches the spoon and it comes and you can lift it back up, it's really not cooked and you have to keep cooking it. But as I stuck it into the meat, my spoon went all the way through it, and it's cooking up real nice. So now what you can do, depending on if you have a good amount of time, you can actually cover it back up, let it boil a little bit longer, but I don't want to be waiting forever to eat. I'm really hungry, actually. The smell is just so overtaking, and I love the smell. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this up a little bit higher, and I'm going to leave it uncovered because, like I said, I left my chicken stock I got a good bit of it. So what I'm going to do is basically boil out the water. So as that's boiling though, I don't want it to burn. So you really got to keep a good eye on it because it can burn, flow over, boil over basically. And you just don't want it to burn because nothing tastes good burnt. I mean, maybe you like it burnt, so you could do that. But I'm just not going to do that. And as you can see, it's been 10 minutes, so I'm flipping it back over. Cooking is just an awesome way, especially if you have kids. You could be teaching them how to cook. When I was younger, I'd watch my mom cook. And then the cool part about it is after I watched my family and I worked at restaurants and I seen how they cook, I wanted to put my own little detail in it. And like I said, my little secret recipe is the onion. Like I said, it doesn't overtake the flavor, but you have to try it. Like I really say, make this meal for your family and they're going to love it. And what I'm doing is I'm just basting the chicken. You figure I got 1, 2, 3, I got about 4 chickens in here. So, but yeah, I just like to baste my stuff. And as you can see, the garlic is starting to get really soft. I mean, it's going to make, and you'll see it. You can see like it's like an oil base on top, and that's the flavor. And that's why when you turn it up, I'm even going to turn this up a little higher. But when you turn it up higher, I do not put the lid on because it will make a mess. It will boil and you're going to lose all your sauce. And you don't want to do that. So as you see, it's starting to really boil. Yeah, I mean, it's just so good. So good. I'm going to take this off and I want to bring this closer. And oh my goodness. So good, so good, so good. So there we go. I'm going to leave that on. I'm going to put this back in the refrigerator because you don't want that out. There's no need for it to be out right now. Turn on this light here. There we go. But actually, we don't even need that on. I like to save some electricity so you don't need 50 lights on. I can see perfectly fine. So yeah, there we go. And I like to just move them around a little bit. I mean, it's just the fun of cooking. You don't have to do it. But, you know, it gives me something to do. I'm not just standing here watching it boil. Okay, so as our chicken, I put the lid back on it. I like to just kind of, if I see it start boiling a little too high, just take the lid off. But I think the way I do it, and you can follow my recipe, and the way I do it though is I love putting the lid on because I feel it's like keeping in the flavor and just the moisture is basically coming out. So what we have here is just $1. And you know, I wouldn't make this from scratch when I can go to any store and buy it for $1 and make it for a side dish. This is just a great garlic chicken recipe I wanted to show everybody, but I'm going to make, it's called creamy garlic shells. And it says what I need in it is, basically I just read the directions. It says 1.5 cups of water and a 1/2 cup milk. I always like to do the milk first because when you get the water in your measuring cup, it kind of like washes it out. So it says 1/2. I always do just a little bit more because I like my stuff creamy on the milk part. Now I'm going to go over to the sink here and get the 1.5 cups. Okay, we got the 1.5 cups of water. I always make sure that I measure the water out right because if you put too much water, then you're going to get that water taste. But when you do the milk, you don't really have to worry about anything because, you know, it's like always trying to find the lid. But basically, got the lid in my hand. I'll tell you, when you're cooking, sometimes you just kind of zone out. And then what I do was with my spoon, this is calling for 1 tablespoon of margarine, but I love my stuff with flavor. So what I do So I just take a regular sized spoon and I just get a little bit, something like that, because it's my meal. So, and while this is cooking, because this is almost done, and how you can tell when it's almost done is, number one, the flavor. It's starting to make that really good sauce. So, since it's boiling, and this calls for adding the package, stir in container of package, and return to boiling, reduce heat, and continue boiling generally for 11 minutes. I didn't make this, so I can't really tell you how to make it. It's just a package. My specialty is how to make this garlic chicken. So 11 minutes. Let me grab my other phone here. And 309, let it boil. But this is what I really want you to see. Because like I said, you can have any side dish. You can have rice or, you know, whatever your taste buds are calling for. But like I said, this packet was $1. So, you know, besides buying the chicken, $1 package, and what you need for making this garlic chicken. And actually, this pot was big enough for probably 4 more pieces of chicken I could have put in here. But I like having extra chicken left over, so if I want to make some fried chicken, I have it on standby. Because I've seen people like boil it in water, and there's no flavor if you're just boiling chicken in water and adding garlic. I mean, nah, that's just not my way. I mean, you can do that if you don't have any chicken stock, and it will still make like a little bit of a sauce. But as this is boiling, we got this over here. You want to constantly stir. But we're going to let that boil. Okay, now you're going to want to do is take the lid off. Or if you didn't have the lid on, it's no problem. But now the sauce is boiling down. And you'll see it's starting to get thicker. So here's what you want to do, though, because you don't want to burn it and you don't want to burn all the flavor out of there. So what you want to do, turn it down on this stove. It's between low and warm. So mine's on basically 4. I'll put it on 3. But you're going to like start settling it down. And then you're just flipping the chicken. Because like I said, if you leave it on one side too long, you'll see it start to get real dark. And you don't want that. But now you're just flipping it. You're marinating it. Oh yeah, I mean, just looking good. A lot of flavor. And you should be able to literally cut the chicken with your knife. Or spoon or fork. And if you're using a knife though, let me get a knife. If you're using a knife, and you should be able to slice it through. And not even no weight. Not putting a bunch of weight on cutting it. But I mean, if it's tough to cut, then you were doing it wrong. So, look at that. I mean, it's like butter. The skin is like going through butter. The chicken is just golden brown. And I mean, it's looking good. So now that I turned it down, and now there's just the flavor in there. Just, oh my goodness, so good, so good. Now you can put the lid on. And we got my dish right here. Can't forget about this dish. And what you're doing, it's just stirring everything. Even that side dish, it might be $1, but if you let it stay on high, to me, it will dry it out. I like my stuff creamy. I love it creamy. So when you put it away, it has flavor to it. So I put a lid on it because now it's, look at that, nice and creamy. And I put a lid on it. I turn it down basically to low. And this is, you got to make sure, don't walk away from the stove when you have the sauce. It's down, you know, because you don't want it a soup. See, that's still a little too much. Let me get in here. It's a little too much sauce still. It's still like a soup, and I don't want to eat a soup. This is garlic chicken, so I'm going to let that, you know what, actually you can even leave the lid off for a little while. It's still boiling. I'm going to put this up just a little longer. There you go. You're going to let it cook, let it cook, let it cook to a sauce. It's making the sauce. There's the gravy. Oh, good gravy. Look at that. Look at that. Oh my gosh, look at that. And that's what it's supposed to look like. Because you don't want it a soup, so you're going to keep on cooking it. See how it's falling apart? Look at that. I separated it just with a spoon. You don't need a knife. Look at that, falling off. It's falling off of the bone. Look at that, falling off of the bone. So now what you do, oh yeah, oh, look at that, look at that. That is just some good chicken. But now what you can do is turn it off. Turn it completely off and just let it cook. Let the heat cook the rest of it. And as we come over here, that's looking good. That's looking good. Oh yeah, look at that. Look at that. The steam is fogging up my camera. But there it is. Now I take that off the heat. I cover that back up. But here's the main event right here. This is the chicken. So for the main event, I got my creamy garlic shells right here. And now I'm plating the chicken. And I like doing it upside down because when you grab the flavor, oh, look at that. Look at that gravy. Oh, look at that. Beautiful. Oh, beautiful. And there you go. That's a complete. Clean up the plate a little bit. And you can, clean up the plate. This is my plate, so I use my finger. But basically, that's what it looks like. It's a delicious meal. Delicious. Your family will love the garlic chicken. Your family is going to love this chicken. Look how juicy. Oh my gosh. A nice dish. Creamy. Look at that. Look at that chicken though. Chicken's delicious. Look at this. I can split it with one finger. With one hand. Look at that. Oh my gosh. Delicious.